It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Thank you for joining me. I am thrilled you are here. I have an amazing guest. A woman that I have recently gotten to know, but immediately in the conversation, we just clicked. Amilya Antonetti and I were just chatting as I was driving, and it's like, we've got to talk. We've got to do a podcast. We have to do more. Amilya, thank you for joining me here today. I want to do a little bit of an introduction and just a couple of highlights because this is an amazing woman. Okay. Amilya is a behavioral expert, has been on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Steve Harvey Show, Dr. Phil. I can go on and on those accolades. But now let's get into what we're really interested in. She has led and exited 6 successful businesses. That is amazing. She is the Women's Economic Forum Woman of the Decade. Okay, has worked with 53,000, if I have that number right. And Amilya, you're going to correct me. Team members, you are globetrotting all over the place. And thank you for taking a few minutes to join me today on Her Success Story.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So share a little bit of the backstory. Where did your career lead you, and how did you become the woman you are today and the leader you are today?
I think success is an equal proportion to suffering. If you can't suffer, you're not going to be able to succeed. You're just too sensitive. And so I was child of immigrants. I wanted to stay in this country. It became very clear that my brothers were being seen differently than I was as the only female on what was opportunity, where my value would be. And so I was emancipated at 15 and hit the ground running with this kind of drive in my belly that I wanted to stay here in America. And the only way to stay here is if I can earn it. It's different than other people who are born here. I had to earn the right to be here. And so I started my first company when I was in high school, and I sold it at 17, made my first $1 million, and then I've been doing it since.
As this has led you today, okay, first, I have to acknowledge there is not enough women leaders who are building businesses, selling businesses, and going on to the next one. Women struggle with funding. Women struggle with taking it down that journey and successfully exiting. Any thoughts of what you were able to do and navigate that you have seen others not do?
I think the biggest obstacle for women, to be perfectly honest, is we're conditioned in environments that tell us we have to trade something. And because we are nurturers by nature, and we are more neuroscientifically connected between our tactical and our emotion, the fact that we have to trade causes us to not lean into opportunities for fear of what we're going to trade. And so even as a very young woman, the belief system is, well, if I build a business, I can't have a family. If I do this, I have to trade that. So it's a vibration or a energy connection mentally that men don't face. Men don't think they have to trade anything. And we do.
And I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to not just reinforce what you're saying, but quote what I was told when I was pregnant 30 some odd years ago, when a dear friend said, with love, well, you can't be a good mother and run a business. You have to choose which way you want to go. You could have a small career, like you right? But you can't build this company that you're looking to build and be a good mom. And I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I can. But it wasn't the path. It's not. Everybody thinks, oh, well, if I'm going to go, how could I have a career? What can I do in my career and still be a good mother? And we don't see, oh, I could be a CEO and still be a good mom.
Yeah, the messaging for women is extremely mixed and conflicted. And when you're given that as the option, women will hold back because, right?
Naturally.
And so before you get into the conversation about funding and this and that and the other thing, that's not the core problem. The core problem is that there isn't enough role models to look at for somebody who you can look at her life and say, I like all of her life. Problem is we look at our role models and we're like, okay, I love her career, but I don't want her marriage and I for sure don't want her kids, or I like this part of her thing, but then she's, it's really hard to look at the whole person. If you listen to today's marketplace where employees, right, are saying, I want to be treated not as a commodity, I want to be a whole person. Well, when you look at women's successes, the models that are out there, and you look at the whole person, there's not many that where we go, I like the whole person. Even if you want to just make it gender neutral, show me how many top 2% of men that you go, I want their life. There's not enough role models out there where it's the true representation of success, a successful partnership, with a life partner, whether that's marriage or whatever you want to call it, kids that are actually not lucky sperm clips, that are actually being raised in order to be contributing members of society, a
Correct.
woman who is comfortable with herself, likes herself, and is a good leader, is involved in the community, right? I mean, so when you talk about all of those things, there's lacking of role models. And then if you go, okay, well, if there's role models, then how many of them are women? You're lucky to be able to name off a dozen, right? I mean, just
Right.
it would be hard. Yeah.
So how have you navigated this for yourself?
Well, again, I always say, don't give me too much credit. The reality is I was 15. I didn't know. I literally, a lot of the things that people say have been my success is because one, I am probably the most grounded in person you'll ever meet. I am probably too transparent for my own good. I'm extremely grounded in who I am. I make no apologies, right? I don't present that I'm this warm, squishy cheerleader, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's not who I am. And so I'm grounded who I am. I like who I am. I like what I stand for. I absolutely cheer for other people. I'm a we player. So other people's personalities that are not like mine and how they contribute in the world. I love that. I love women. And I think because I was so young when I started, I really did not know that I couldn't. Like I didn't know. I mean, when people look at the story of the first couple of businesses that I grew and then sold, it really was the naivety that I didn't know there wasn't other women doing it. I just thought I didn't know them. So when I started, there was Whoopi Goldberg and there was Barbara Walters. Those are the only two women that I could find. This is before Oprah, before Cheryl, before there was Whoopi Goldberg.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So I was like, well, Whoopi Goldberg, well, I'm not funny. And that ain't happening anytime soon. And Barbara Walters, even though she was a force, she was interviewing people. I'm like, I got no desire to do that. I was like, so let me just find my way and I'll bump into a woman eventually. I just didn't realize women were not doing what I was doing until the market met me where I was. And they started things like, where did you go to college? Where's your degree? Is this your dad's company? Is this your husband's company? And I kept saying, why are you asking me these questions? Like, why don't you ask me what I think, what do I believe, and what am I doing? My husband, I don't know. It's not none of those things. And so I started to realize that people were really, really struggling to understand who I was and how it was possible because my high heels confused them. And I was like, isn't that interesting? And because I'm a behaviorist, I'll mirror for you your own issue. And I would say that. I would be like, wow, the high heels are bothering you. It sounds like a you problem to me. It's not my problem. That's you're having the problem. I know who I am. You're struggling to understand me. There's no struggle here. And so I don't pick up that energy. I was like, wow, the baggage is heavy for you. You can put it down if you'd like. It's not in my issue.
It's interesting because early in my career, I, even in looking to go to college, I said, I want to get a degree in dance because that was my world. But my parents said, well, you have to get a degree in something that pays the bills if we're going to help you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, where can I go get 2 degrees? without, and they're like, no, no, no. And so many colleges are like, oh, you need a major and a minor. I'm like, no, 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 I need 2 degrees. Okay, well, we could do a major and a minor. No, 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 we're going to get 2 degrees. And I eventually went down that path. And then, my career took me into some really great women entrepreneurs. And then when I got into the printing industry and there were no women leaders and were no women selling and leading companies and this and that, I was just like, I had the experience of working for great women entrepreneurs. So I was just like, well, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And I just made the decision, well, I'll do it. And I don't take the word no lightly. So when society or people say, oh, you can't do this, it's like, no, 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 that might be a you thing, not a me thing.
Right. Right. And you
So
have to really be disciplined to not make it a you thing.
you have to be, I agree with that. You have to be disciplined and you have to have a belief that what others tell you can't do is not relevant to what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll always say my stubbornness is some of my greatest assets because of that. Well, people like, my husband goes, well, you had, we'll talk about like this kid or that kid of ours. It's like, oh, they got your stubborn streak. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it hasn't hurt me yet.
Right. It's a blessing and a curse. And that's with everything. Everything is a blessing and a curse. And you have to be able to see both sides so that you can choose accordingly when you're at those crossroads, right? Am I going to make this part of my blessing or am I going to make this part of my curse? People have yet to figure out that any resistance you have in the world, whatever resistance you're facing, it derives from you. You're part of the struggle. You're creating it. You're in your way. And that's why I say, my whole company is success is an inward journey to understand how you are creating it. People think that these factors are outside of us. They're like, well, if I had more time, if I had more money, if I had more resources. I'm like, if you had all those things, you'd be exactly where you are right now because it's an internal to understand how you are contributing to where you are right now. And then to be able to say what part of you must die. It literally, parts of you must die in order to become your future self. And that's where people struggle is because they want to stay on the same wheel as yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Most things in most people's lives don't change very much. And so if you want to be a serial, sustainable entrepreneur, change is daily. What I change in a day, most people don't change in their lifetime. But in order for me to stay ahead, then I have to be able to live and actually an enormous amount of resistance and change. And that's where I feel comfortable. But in that resistance and change, I know what part of it I am contributing in order to move forward.
So I want to ask, because I think our listeners really need to, I want to have a good understanding. You refer to yourself as a behaviorist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the people not in the know, can we take a moment and explain what you do and how you do this with your clients and with so many people and how you've touched so many?
Yeah, well, so first of all, just to kind of put some placeholders,
Thanks.
I currently run a company that's a tech and data company that specializes in behavioral sciences. That's my company, right? My company offers all kinds of services for the B2B and the B2C space, right? But we're a tech and data company. I am never confused that I'm a tech and data company. I'm not a consulting company. I'm not a training company. I'm none of those things. I'm tech and data, and we're driving towards our exit, right? So I never deviate that that's the core business that I'm in. But in order to understand all of the businesses that I've been in and all of the clients that I serve, you have to understand that where I show up is as a behaviorist. So when you're taking a look at a different experience, right? Well, somebody may be a strategist, somebody may be an accountant, they may be a lot of systems person. My secret sauce is I'm a behaviorist. And the difference between that and say a therapist is a therapist has to move at the pace of their client, right? A therapist you can't go into therapy and the therapist move you to the end, right? They can't. They got to hold your hand and move at your pace. That is good for a lot of people, but it sucks for business. And so that doesn't help me. And so a behaviorist mirrors what is going on inside your being, meaning what you're thinking, what you're doing, and the energy that you're creating, the frequency, and mirrors it for you, which means behaviorists come with an ouch factor, right? My likability is low. A therapist likability is high, right? I'm going to get you to see what's going on internally and then say, okay, now that you got the ouch and you're in full presence, is it working or is it not working? Because if it's not working, then the behaviorist dissects the little crumbs of what's not working, where they're rooted, and gives you a behavior modification. I'm less concerned if you understand all the who, what, why, when. If you want to do that, go with the therapist. They're going to explain why, your attachments, your father and your mother issues. I don't care about that. I care about you to have enough awareness and what the behavior modifier is so that we can start taking action and the behavior will then adjust, right? And so it's just a different process. I mean, I have a lot of therapist friends. I have a lot of therapists who use my tools because most therapists don't have tech and data. I'm a tech and data company. And so the experience is different. So a lot of times I'm not for everyone, right? I know that my clients will tell you that they have a love-hate relationship with me because I'm not going to slow down for you to be able to feel good about what I have to tell you. My responsibility is to the outcome, not to you. It's to the outcome you and I agreed was the outcome of where we want to go. So when I'm working for a business, I have to make sure that whether it's the board or the money or the CEO that brought me in, we agree on the outcome. Now, the process to get there is going to hurt like hell. It's going to hurt, but true growth does hurt. And if the hurt is what frightens you, I can refer you to somebody who can do a much more gentler user experience. And that's why I'm saying part about knowing who you are. I am very good at what I do, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody.
And I respect that and I agree with that. Growth is not going to be easy.
No.
And if you want the easy path, you want to coast, that's a choice that we can make. I do think when we commit, when we're looking to shift behaviors, I will give you an example. People like, Ivy, there's no way you're an introvert. I was like, 100% I'm an introvert.
So am I.
Been an introvert my whole life.
I'm
Like, no,
100%
I've seen you out there. This is natural for you. I'm like, natural? Maybe not. You're seeing something that, before I go into a networking thing, I was in a networking thing in Las Vegas a bunch of years ago, right? They had 150 people in the room. I knew a good portion of them. I stood outside that room and took 3 deep breaths before I entered because it is not easy for me to do. That doesn't mean I don't do it. And I don't do it on a consistent basis.
And again, as a behaviorist, this is where I got to correct the Okay. People don't understand the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, right? An introvert goes into a situation, it has no bearing on whether they can or do it well. When they go into a situation, whether it's a concert, a networking, speak, whatever it is, when they go into a visible scenario, even though they may love the scenario is exhausting to them. So an introvert goes in, is exhausted afterward. An extrovert goes into the same experience and feels energized afterwards. So what we don't understand about, right? I'm an introvert. I'm a painful introvert. And what I have to understand about myself in order for me to care for myself is if I'm speaking on stage today, it is highly advisable that the next day is a recovery day, right? Where an extrovert could do a multi-city tour because they're thriving off of the energy. Well, I need to recover off after something public. And so that's why people don't understand when they go, oh, you're an introvert, Amilya, there's no way you guys do it so well. Yes, but we require recovery that an extrovert doesn't require.
Very well said. Amilya, what has surprised you? What if anything, has surprised you in this journey?
Oh, I find people fascinating. I mean, it's why I love what I do, because I mean, I could people watch for just hours, right? It's people are fascinating to me. And I think that what continues to surprise me about myself and others, right? I'm a human too, is the story. We create so many stories, and we spend half our life, if not more, living in a story that never happened. It never happened. When you talk about suffering,
Yeah.
so much of human suffering is in things that we made up in our head. It's not what's going on. I always say, whatever you think is going on is never what's going on. The thing that's causing you heartache, what you're really mourning for, is the story you told yourself, not actually what happened. And so I think that what surprises me over and over again is how much we are conditioned for stagnant and depressed and paddling backwards. We're not really conditioned in our environment for sustainable success. The skills that are required for us to grow and heal and release and learn and all those things are not taught in our environment. And it's gotten worse over the decades, not better. And so when I'm working with people, whether I'm, speaking at a school, whether I'm working with parents and child, whether I'm working with, I've done 7,000 couples, it's really about helping them see that what you're emotionally responding to isn't what happened. That's not what happened. And for people to really understand, I try to land this message as a behaviorist more than anything else. Your emotions have a 90-second shelf life. That's it. Your emotion can only live for 90 seconds unless you feed it. And what we learn is to feed that emotion, and we feed it as an addiction, right? And so you get up, you bump your toe, and you're like, there we go again. I'm going to have a horrible day because I'm such a klutz and I broke my toe now. And we feed it and we feed it and we feed it and we feed it. And that's why our feelings last longer. But if you have the same scenario and you stub your toe and you're like, look at that. Look, what a gift. I'm in full awareness that I'm moving through my day and I wasn't present. This little reminder is now going to help me be more present for my day. I'm going to do a better meeting. I'm going to do a better pitch. I'm going to do a better whatever because I am fully in full awareness right now, right? It depends what you feed based on the scenario. And it's a skill. It's not innate. You don't wake up this way.
Oh.
You learn it. And so all of these little tips that we try to pass on, transferring our knowledge to the next person who's listening or the next person that we meet, is to say, here's what I've learned. If it's valuable for you, implement it, right? If you can add on to it and pass it on again. If it doesn't work for you, no worries.
Yeah.
No, keep going. No problem.
So as we close out for today, one tip to pass to our leaders in staying present, in being their best selves, in how we could learn from listening today, as much as the huge amount of great knowledge and stories you have shared with us. What is one tip they could take forward?
That your life is really the first 22 minutes in the morning and your last 22 minutes in the evening. Your brain doesn't remember the middle. So you're not trying to struggle to have a 24-hour amazingness, right? Or an 8-hour day. The 22 minutes in the morning and the 22 minutes in the evening, if you get those right, your entire energy, your entire being thinks that they had an amazing, incredible life. And so if you focus on those bookends, life becomes very easy to write.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for that moment.
My pleasure.
How can our listeners find out more about you?
I mean, if you can spell my name, you can find me anywhere. Amilya.
Which will be in the show notes, so do
Right.
not panic, listeners. Everything's going to go in the show notes below.
Yeah, so Amilya.com, Designing Genius is my company. The book is up on Amazon, which is called also Designing Genius, Success is an Inward Journey. We have, courses and products and services, all kinds of stuff to just try to help you get to your highest and best self. And I try to do my very best to kind of literally pass my knowledge on to somebody else so they can do great things with it. So catch me on the social channels, catch me online. I try to respond to everybody.
Amelia, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the openness and inviting our listeners to join you online and follow and ask, engage. Don't just show up and engage people. That's how we learn. Listeners, I always say this is how we close out a show. Take a deep breath. Think about one takeaway, one aha moment from listening to this interview today. My chat conversation Amelia and I just had. What is your takeaway? Make a decision on one action you can take and take that forward. And as we take these baby steps, that's where true success lands you. Thank you for joining me here today. See you next time on Her Success Story.